It's 8:30, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners for October 22nd to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second the motion.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next is citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens that are here that want to address any issue that's not on the today's agenda? Steve, do we have anybody online?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next, approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
I move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And approval of minutes from October 8th and October 15th.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. First item up, going to be James O'Donnell, Director of the West Central Regional Juvenile Center. Request approval to hire a supervisor for West Central Regional Juvenile Center transition programs. James?
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm here today to request permission to hire a supervisor for transitional programs. I brought this to PIC and vetted it through last week as part of the ongoing thing with opening up that new transition program. This position will supervise, if approved, will supervise the both the male and female transition programs. And it is in our 2024 budget, and if the 2025 budget's approved, it's in that as well. With that, does anybody have any questions?
Will this need a backfill?
It will.
Okay.
We discussed this at PIC, and I would recommend approval.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And this is, Commissioner Gross, this is with a backfill.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
James. Sheriff, you're up next. Request approval to continue to offer deputy hiring bonuses and other current incentives.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having me here this morning. Here today to request that we continue on with the deputy hiring bonuses along with the other bonuses that we implemented earlier this year as far as the recruitment incentive and the front-loading 40 hours sick, 40 hours of vacation. That has seemed to work for us. It did get us up to fully staffed there for a little bit. We had the unforeseen resignation of a deputy. This was discussed week at PIC as well, and it was determined to bring forward here to the board. As far as funding, not requesting any additional funding for this. I believe we have that covered in our salaries for 2024. It was also discussed to have this continue on until it was determined that we'd have to review it again, so.
Any Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah, I certainly support it. I think it's worked. The only thing that I would question about is just be ongoing. I really do think that we should have that for review annually. Because it appears, based on what you're talking about here, so would that have its own line item?
It would not. It would be in the.
And that's the issue.
Yep.
If it had its own line item, as we look through the budget, we have something to compare year to year to see. And because it's in with some other things, and there's other incentives that are involved there, I just think we should be reviewing it annually. That's.
And I would be fine with an annual review. It's just, it helps us when we put out the advertisement for employment that we can put it in there. So just knowing that we're able to put that in there, I mean, that's the big thing for us. If it's an annual review, that's great too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? We did review this in PIC. At that time, I think what we were looking at was, when did we last look at this? And, you know, I don't think it was as much a recommendation as an observation that we could carry this on until we no longer need it. But an annual review would meet that need too.
Well, how this got started too is it was funded by public safety dollars. And the public safety dollars, at some point, are gonna be gone, and then it's gonna become general levy dollars.
Yep.
So and that's why I think that's important that we have the annual review. If the public safety dollars continued and the sheriff selected to use that out of public safety dollars, I would have no trouble with it at all. And I'm assuming you're still gonna be able to make a good case for it in the future if it's needed,
I would
so.
assume, yeah, for the unforeseeable future, we're going to.
It's just more of a deal where I think the board should be at least seeing what activity has taken place in that.
Commissioner Kravinoff.
Yeah, and so, I totally agree, fully support it. Just wanting to know the detail you mentioned, the line item, do we find that necessary, or do you feel?
Well, I don't think it's necessary as, and this is my own opinion, of course, we each have our own, but I don't think it's necessary as long as it's brought up to us, you know, in terms of he's including, because it seems to me from what I gather, it's coming out of your wage line item.
It is coming out of the wage line item, correct.
And, you know, so,
It can be discussed at that time.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so if he wants that to continue, you can, when you present your budget for the following year, you can say, this includes so much for those incentives.
Certainly it's something, if it's not in there, we need to have brought to our attention. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I would move the continuation of the hiring bonus and incentives with annual review.
I'll second the motion.
I have motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Sheriff. And then there's that.
Next up. Yes, sir, Kurt Cannon.
Yes, sir.
our
Good
Veteran
morning,
Service
Chair,
Officer.
Commissioners. Starting to rain out. Here to present Operation Greenlight.
We've been needing rain for a long time, and
Have we?
I just think it's interesting that it's finally raining when you come to the board, so
I know.
maybe
It's like
you should
thunder.
come to the board every week.
Thunder and lightning.
All right.
I thought it was decaf coffee this morning.
We need a snare drum in here.
We have the new admin that started. She says, I didn't know which one was decaf or regular. I'm like, I think you got the regular. Anyhow, Operation Greenlight, support of veterans this year, November 4th through the 11th. Have it in the papers and looking for the resolution to be passed, and we'll get that going. I believe a couple years ago, we got the lights that you can change already, so there's no cost. I think it's just a button now that they switched to green, so that'll be taking place. With your approval, of course.
I suppose we could ask her to read the entire resolution, but I think it's important for us to participate in this. So I know this is an extremely gifted commission. We can get through this a paragraph at a time without having previously rehearsed it. So
I support you.
if we can, Jenny, you want to lead us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans, Resolution 2024-31. Whereas the residents of Clay County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces, and
Whereas the contributions and sacrifices of those who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens, and
Whereas Clay County seeks to honor individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all.
And whereas the veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And
Whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually. And
Whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition, 20% will transition to civilian life in the near future, and
Whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during the transition from military to civilian life, and
Whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at a high risk for suicide during their first year after military service, and
Whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans.
And whereas the Clay County appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted,
therefore be it resolved with designation as a green light for Veterans County, Clay County hereby declares from November 4th through Veterans Day, November 11th, 2024, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifices of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service.
Therefore, be it resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Clay County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who have made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window of their place of business or residence from November 4th through the 11th, 2024, this 22nd day of October, 2020.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-31.
second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And Kurt, as always, thank you for your service before you came here and after. You served your country and your veterans, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for your support again.
Gwen, you're up. Tough act to follow, by the way. You've got to be humorous.
Not even gonna try. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
I am here today to request a motion to approve an issuance for a request for proposal for the statewide affordable housing aid funds that we received for 2025. To provide a little bit of context, the statewide affordable housing aid, or SAHA, I'll refer to it as SAHA moving forward, helps counties, local governments develop and preserve affordable housing within their jurisdictions to keep families from losing housing and to help those experiencing homelessness find housing. In 2023 and 2024, the statewide appropriation was $22.5 million each year. However, it was decreased to $10 million in 2025 and thereafter. The Department of Revenue certifies these amounts for tribes, counties, and cities by August 1st each year. Certification is based on the current statutes, taking into consideration any changes from legislative changes. 2025, the SAHA funds are paid directly to us in 2 equal installments on the 20th of July and 26th of December. Our allocation for 2025 is $68,698. The funds distributed under this aid must be spent on a qualifying project. I did attach the proposed RFP to your packets, which outlines exactly what qualifying projects are. It was recommended that for the 2023-2024 funds, that a request for proposal be issued for the utilization and distribution of these funds. At that time, an RFP was created, applications were submitted and scored. I believe some of you were a part of that decision-making process, with the 23-24 funds being allocated to Clay County HRA. I did draft a new RFP, which is attached to reflect the new allocation amount and the legislative changes for 2025's numbers. Of note regarding these changes, the funding of operations and supportive services were added to the list of qualifying projects the aid may be spent on, including costs of operating an emergency shelter, transitional housing, supportive housing, or publicly owned housing. It was also amended that aid recipients must commit to using the money to supplement, not supplant, existing housing budgets. I would yield for any questions at this time.
Questions for Quinn? Commissioner Kravinoff?
Speak to, this opportunity once again, having paid a little closer attention over the last year of these funds, how important they are to keep people in their homes, and with all the pressure we have right now in our community leading toward homelessness, this is one small way to help mitigate that. I think it's unfortunate the dollars dropped so much. It's got to be about half of what we had last year. But anyway, strongly support it, and if approved, look forward to the RFP going out.
As Commissioner Kravinoff indicated, it is very untimely that this has been cut basically in half. We've got a crisis in our community right now for emergency housing. Is this going to be something that could at least partially be directed towards Churches United? Or I understand that we've directed money out of this fund before to them. Sure, Commissioner
may.
Kravinoff.
I think that's the process of the RFP.
Yeah, in my understanding, last time we had, we had an RFP, and I thought it was with Lakes and Prairies Community, that some of the money was distributed to Cap LP. Some of it was distributed to Churches United through them.
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, we have the SAHA funds, and then we also have the local homeless prevention aid. I
Okay.
believe what you're referencing, the local homeless.
I'm
prevention
confusing the
aid was
two.
Allocated to Cap LP, and I believe they subcontracted to churches.
Okay, I'm getting the two mixed up, and I was wondering why we were not pointing that out here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. This is different funds. This is the statewide affordable housing aid.
Okay.
Move approval to issue the RFP.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Quinn.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Thank you. Well, I think the point that was brought up, and I think we've had conversations maybe internally about this, but there's been a lot of discussion regarding Churches United and funds and whose appropriate entity is to help with certain funds. Can you just talk a little bit about the existing revenue that is available for reimbursement for churches if the submittals are submitted to the county?
Sure. I believe you're referencing our housing support program?
Correct.
Yes. So our housing support program is, we have 19 beds that are allocated to Churches United through different tiers of funding in terms of providing supplemental services on top of just room and board costs. So Churches United has the ability to fill those 19 beds with the appropriate clientele. They have to meet certain eligibility criteria, but assuming they would be able to fill those beds, that would generate a significant amount of revenue for each of the 19.
So obviously not every client, let's say, is probably a suitable reimbursement for those specific allocated funds. But my understanding is there is a substantial amount of money, $270,000, that were not requested for reimbursement, correct?
Well, it's my understanding that Churches currently has 6 of the 19 beds filled.
Okay.
So just doing the math on the difference between that, it would be approximately $270,000.
Thank you.
Is that money going to be available next year?
They still have the beds allocated to them. It would just be finding the right clients that are voluntary participants in the program that meet the eligibility criteria, and they would receive that, yes.
Very good.
But there's a submittal component, correct?
Yeah, as
You
soon
have to
as,
submit the paperwork in order to
Correct.
receive the revenue.
correct, yes, yeah.
And those 19 beds, that funding, that all comes out of the state?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so how many beds does Clay County have the ability to, throughout the entire county? We talk about 19 for Churches United. How many other beds are there throughout our communities?
I didn't bring that material with me, but I believe it's 94 total, and we have 19 allocated towards Churches
Okay.
United and Bright Sky.
Okay.
It includes both properties.
Okay.
Thank you.
And how is that reviewed in terms of, the distribution of the total allotment?
So any agency that wants to provide housing support is able to contact us with basically proposals saying this is how we're going to provide the service to the folks in the community. We have a team in our financial services division that all they do is monitor the housing support program to make sure the appropriate eligibility is met and to make
Right.
sure the paperwork's being turned in. So we have 2 staff specifically designed to kind of provide the checks and balances of those state funds going to these programs. And we're always looking for people. Once we use up our banked beds, basically when a facility closes, for example, Dorothy Day was allotted 5 banked beds, but when they closed, those beds came back to the county. So basically 5 additional beds became available if someone was able to provide that level of service and support for folks. So someone could hypothetically contact us and say, hey, I'd like to utilize those 5 beds. And if they signed a housing support agreement with us and basically met all the criteria, we would likely engage in that and say it's a good use because it helps folks.
Well, I think that's good for the community to know. The very first step, is there like an application that they fill out
Yes.
then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you would contact myself directly or one of our financial services supervisors. We'd get
Good to know.
the ball
Thank you,
rolling on
Quinn.
that.
Anything else? Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have got time we have a public hearing, 9 o'clock, so we have time for one committee report, if that works for everybody. Jenny, you're going to start us off.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I attended the Chamber of Commerce held a candidate forum at the Dilworth City Council. I appreciate the chamber for putting on those. Certainly, I would say Dilworth had the most amount of residents at any of those, to which I'm sure Frank is not surprised that his community had the most people there. I appreciate Commissioner Krabanoff for attending the Planning Commission meeting for me in person. I'll defer to him for a report, but I was able to virtually tune in online and listen to the majority of that. I know the Planning Commission has a variety of really difficult situations that come to them for decision, and I really appreciate the flexibility that the board showed towards residents maybe facing difficult situations, particularly with the first hearing, and then with the second, just trying to find the most appropriate space. Certainly having a large Highway 10 corridor presents challenges and opportunities, and I think the board has a good thought process for working through that second hearing. The next day, I attended with Commissioner Krabanoff, Administrator Larson, Solutions representatives, and Representative Keeler, a long planning process on our PRTF. James O'Donnell was also present there. I'm really, really excited about the new path forward that Clay County has for mitigating and addressing that PRTF need. There was a meeting yesterday with DHS. They came forward. Representative Keeler has had long discussions with state leadership and DHS about what the best path forward is, and she maintains that because there are so many, 23 last year and 23 counties last year and 5 tribal nations, that this is a state issue, and so has been having discussion with the governor's office and DHS about the appropriate avenue for funding. And we're going to go after state funding in the governor's budget because of this. Bonding has some new and ever-changing, if you will, bonding requirements for funding that puts entities in a really challenging and difficult position to plan forward, and we are going to boldly move forward with preparing legislative verbiage for a jacketing in December. So we're working with staff on the wording of what that bill will be, so that as soon as session starts, it can drop and have hopefully a very low number for that. So I think last year's session was maybe, difficult. Well, it was difficult for all of us to handle, but I think it's probably best as we move forward. So I'm really excited about the collaborative effort there. I then went to the staff chili feed, and Jackie, if you want to make soup for my family whenever, you're welcome to do so. I appreciate staff doing that. That was fantastic. The next day, excuse me, I attended the MetroCog committee meeting. A lot of moving pieces in that as we plan projects. Their proposed budgets for all of the entities next year was outlaid. I did provide caution to them. I appreciate seeing a reduction in a levy request, but that's challenging to address when projects change around and all of a sudden a project that's maybe allocated for another entity moves to something that Clay County has in the pipeline. But I think that because we have planning and zoning and the highway department and that transportation technical committee, that will be helpful in addressing that concern. Lost my notes. That evening, I went to the CAP LP board meeting in Breckenridge. It's always great to visit that site. We had update on economic empowerment. We discussed the finance committee and the report on the audit. I supplied our administrator with their finance sheets from the past year. We acted on the risk assessment, Head Start policy, policy edits. We talked about one of their United Way of Cass Clay bold goal, which is the Career Connect. I'm really excited about what they've been doing with Career Connect and CNA and CDL training for those in our community. That's really exciting. And had a vice chair elected, Commissioner John Green from Wilkin County. We did have 2 new representatives on that board. Really excited to add Jihan Brifke from Clay County and then James Hammer from Wilkin County. It speaks to the collaborative nature of both of the counties on that. We had a housing advisory board update from Senator Kupek. We did talk about our DMV that opened at our new facility on Monday. Jihan Brifke and Senator Kupek had worked diligently to provide Kurdish translation to Kurdish residents that are seeking their the services at the DMV. Sorry, the words aren't wording in my mouth today. I might need a translator for myself. So really, really good collaborative effort on that. The next day, I attended the AMC district meeting in Fergus Falls with all of you, our Administrator Larson and Assistant Administrator Darren Brook. Great updates from AMC on all of the collaborative work going on there, the additional trainings that are happening. We had an update from MCIT. And then we were able to look really at, there is a nominal, I believe, increase in what our dues are to AMC. We were able to have a 1-pager on all of the work and funds that AMC has helped to leverage for Clay County. Our county program aid just in the last couple years has really risen dramatically, and that is such a great thing as we work with rising costs and needs. And then we were able to vote on the legislative priorities, which I think reflect the vein of discussion that we've had around this table and the committee tables that we serve on throughout the last year. And then last night I was able to attend the the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley held a community input session for the Moorhead Area Public Schools on a referendum question. And I know that the majority of our community or district schools have issues similar to that. And I just want to maintain that I really appreciate the collaborative work ethic and spirit of collaboration, if you will, that all of our school districts have with the counties. We're doing the best to mitigate the opportunities and challenges that all of our young people are facing and families. And it's those things cost money. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's 9 o'clock and we are scheduled to have a public hearing. I can get a motion.
Motion to open hearing.
Okay. All in favor of moving to a public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we've got Matt Jacobson, our Planning and Zoning Director, and a public hearing, the Alayna and Aaron Stenerson request for platted subdivision.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Yes, this is a request for a platted subdivision. It's for a one-lot commercial subdivision. The name is the Bloomfield subdivision, and it would be approximately 5.44 acre tracts subdivided from a 101.7 acre parcel. It's located just northeast of Sabin, and currently zoned wellhead protection. This is something that requests that you all should be familiar with because they had previously come before earlier in the year for a text amendment to our code to permit commercial cold storage in the wellhead protection zoning district. So currently, it's the use of this property is agriculture. There aren't any structures on the property, and so whenever you're subdividing land for, I guess, non-residential or non-agricultural purposes, no matter how many lots you're doing, we do require a plat per our Clay County code. And so initially the applicant was planning on leasing this tract for their business for a few years before purchasing it. So that's why they went through the text amendment, and then they did get a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission for the business, but now they've made a decision to purchase this tract a little bit earlier than anticipated, so hence the need for the plat. So this is essentially it. It's just this will probably give you a better idea. This is it drawn out kind of where it is on the landscape there. Just one lot, just under 5.5 acres, no issues with access or anything like that. There was no internal roads. The access would be from County Road 69, and their development plan includes up to 9 commercial storage buildings. And here's kind of a closer look at it here. So one thing the Planning Commission did do is they looked at how this would relate to the comprehensive plan, looking at how it would encourage commercial and industrial development that is in harmony with the ag and rural character of Clay County, and basically found that this use has already been very fully vetted by the Planning Commission through the CUP process, and then also through that text amendment process as well. And so they made the recommendation to approve the final plat to you, the Board of Commissioners. Any questions for me at all?
Questions for Matt? If not, entertain a motion to move out of,
Need the public to,
sorry?
aren't we in an open hearing?
Oh, do we have anyone here that wants to speak to this issue from the public?
And Mr. Chair, I'll note that the applicant is here today as well.
Seeing no other comments, Mr. Chair, I would move we close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we moved out. of the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the Bloomfield subdivision final plat.
Second.
Motion and second, further discussion.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I just want to say that as serving on the planning commission, I was able to be present for the public hearings, and I know that in some of the past proposals regarding areas around this, we've had input and concern maybe from the Moorhead Public Utilities, and I would say that there was not any negative feedback on this. I think that this really fits a great need for the area in which it is, and I appreciate that the landowners have shown flexibility really in the proposals working forward.
Any other comments? If not, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jason McCoy. We're going to have a request approval to set a public hearing to consider updating the Clay County tobacco ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So, as you know, my position, my job is to help with substance prevention across the county, and part of that is looking at our current ordinances. Our current Clay County ordinance is 12 years old. In the meantime, since then, the state statute has been updated multiple times, and so we need to update our ordinance just to be in compliance with the state. The one piece in this ordinance that we are suggesting that we consider would be ending the cigarette tobacco in the stores that we actually license here. This would be following, just to take you back a little bit, this would follow Moorhead. About 2 years ago, we Public Health had brought this forward to the commissioners, and at that time, we had asked Moorhead to take the lead since they do have the majority of our citizens in the county. Moorhead stepped up to the challenge. They did pass this exact ordinance for themselves, and it has been in place now for about 2 years. So we were able to kind of watch that, answer any of the feedback questions we had, such as stores closing. No stores have closed because of their ordinance. So therefore, with that idea, we are confident with moving forward to cover where we can cover in the county, just to really give us the best chance of providing a gold standard of health for our kids when it comes to nicotine. So that is kind of explanation. The current ordinance that you have before you was drafted with the help of the Public Health Law Center. They've helped us with a lot of our ordinance work over the years. Also, they drafted this well, I can say the language is the same. They drafted this exact same ordinance for Moorhead as well. So that would be our suggestion, would be to set a public hearing. We would need the 30 days. November 26th would be the soonest we could have a public hearing. That is an evening meeting. I don't know if you would want to have it at an evening meeting, or if you would prefer to wait another week into December to have the public hearing, one way or the other. But that was, I guess, my update for you, and then if there were any questions that you might have for me.
Commissioner Krabanoff.
Thank you, Jason. Other than I read the pages, yes, but not really a deep dive in the 2012 one that we passed, which I had read a while ago. Other than the flavored tobacco, without going too deep, what was the nature of the changes on all the other items that are in this ordinance?
Excellent question, thank you. So a couple of the pieces that have updated since then, believe it or not, in 2012, the state law had not yet included vaping devices as tobacco devices. And so that was a big piece to step forward with. And then on top of that, raising the age to purchase to 21 hadn't happened yet at that time. It has since passed at the state level and the national level as well. So those are the two big pieces that have stepped forward.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mojo?
Can I just ask, and I understand I've been part of these dialogues, but if the tobacco age is 21, why, because I know these discussions started when the tobacco age was 18. What is the push now to eliminate it?
Flavored tobacco is still the number one attracting thing for youth. So while we are starting to see vaping numbers go down, smoking numbers go down, things like that, when a youth chooses to use is still the flavors that attract them. And then when you to the science behind it, the flavored tobacco actually makes things more addictive, up to twice as addictive, and it also makes it very hard to quit. So when we look at the devices that our youth are getting addicted to, the addiction levels are so much deeper than they ever used to be, so it's really hard to help them survive through the, survive is a bad word, I mean, they survive, but to persevere through the cessation process due to these products. So that would be the reason why.
Any other questions?
I'm just kind of curious, since, so you said it's been 2 years since Moorhead adopted the no flavored tobacco.
Yes, sir.
What have we seen in terms of tobacco sales? Are we able to track that within Moorhead?
That's a great question. I don't have that ability to track. I would have to ask individual stores.
My guess is they're very poor anyway.
Right, exactly.
Because they can go across they can go 3 blocks away and buy it for probably half price.
Right. And that was, when we were working with Moorhead on this ordinance, there was the fear that stores were going to close because there was this argument that if a person couldn't buy their cigarettes at a gas station, for example, they wouldn't buy anything.
Yeah.
And so that's the main thing we've been tracking.
That may or may not be an argument that they may have. They may have lost some revenue.
Right.
It may be not enough to force them to close, thank
Right.
goodness. But anyway, so I guess on this, I'm gonna have some more questions on the flavored thing but I certainly want this to go through the public hearing process. And what's the proposed date and time for the hearing?
November 26th. When I put that on the proposal, I didn't know that was an evening meeting. I was just made aware that it was an evening meeting. So if you are okay with it, it'll make it easier for folks to get to a public hearing, certainly, if it was in the evening.
I certainly would like to, and I'm available for that. I think if we move it into the first 2 weeks of December, we have the one meeting at AMC and.
The next available meeting after November 26th would be December 3rd, I believe.
November 6th
Or November,
is our truth and taxation.
correct, yeah. And so that provides the challenge of, if we have a good dialogue, I would hate to stop the dialogue, go into truth and taxation, and then have our citizens that, if they're here to make public comment, have to wait for another hour.
Right.
Just the December 3rd meeting, I will be out of state, so I won't be able to attend that if the public hearing is held that day.
To Commissioner Campbell's question, though, we should be able to track the nicotine sales tax generated in the county, correct? I mean,
Boy, that would be something I would have to also look into.
Yeah, me as well. I'm not sure exactly how to track that.
And again, can I ask one more question? So you mentioned that this ordinance would pertain to the facilities that we license.
Yes.
How many of those are there?
Currently, there are 11 that.
Are they in other communities? Are they rural, or are they in Hawley? Are they in Barnesville, or?
Yes, so not Barnesville, but we do have some unincorporated areas. Sabin, Hawley, Glendon, Ullin, and Hitterdall fall under our ordinance.
Okay.
As well. I have, during this, I have reached out to those communities and asked, given them a copy of the ordinance, asked, do you have any questions? Is there anything else you would like us to do? And at this point, we have not had any feedback except from Hitterdall told us that they supported it. Outside of that, we've not had any negative feedback or asked for us not to move forward.
Well, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, again, I think that from a quorum standpoint, we just have to have 4. I know Commissioner Campbell is going to be gone on that date. We were not having a meeting on the 10th, so the 17th would be the earliest that we would, sounds like we would have the full commission, if that would be the board's wishes.
Commissioner Mojo.
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest here. I'm really struggling with this. And I think part of the reason is I think that it's sending mixed messages on the priority in Clay County when we just did substantial work on cannabis ordinances. And, I'll say that you might have had good feedback. I've had 3 owners of facilities call me with major, major concerns that yes, Moorhead might not have seen a major closing or whatever part of that dialogue, but the gap in how it becomes sustainable to operate in Minnesota is becoming quite wide. And anything that is added that just makes that barrier harder is out there. And I'll say that, in my personal life, obviously I can make choices about certain things. And obviously I have children that I'm substantially concerned about certain components. I don't think something like this is going to deter children from using. I just don't. I really struggle with that, particularly when you can go to Fargo and get exactly what you want. And so I support the mission, obviously, but I'm concerned about the mixed messages with this board taking a big stance on cannabis, and you can have flavored cannabis, but we're not going to allow this.
So to give you an answer to your concern, it may not sway you one way or the other. We had similar questions come up in Moorhead that because of the pandemic, that took us a long time to work through. And ultimately what we came down to, the decision was we can't be concerned about what North Dakota is going to do for our youth. It's our job to step forward and do the best we can for our kids. And so there are science behind the idea that if we make things harder for kids to get a hold of, then they will choose to go a different route. And so it is a definite way to provide a protective layer. Can someone still get a hold of something? Of course. Until the United States was to completely ban nicotine, we can't get rid of it all, but we certainly can do what we can to make it as hard as possible. And I like to flip it because, as you know, I'm working on the positive side of things with our youth. I like to think of it as if we can give them the best chance to make a healthy choice, then why wouldn't we?
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Kravinoff.
Yeah, and I guess personally, with the youth in mind, I certainly back the last statement that Jason just said. So for me, I do hope we have the public hearing so that we can really vet it, community. But.
To that end, I'm assuming Commissioner Campbell wants to be here for this discussion.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything earth-shattering here that we need to do this, whether it's 1 week or 3 weeks or 6 weeks. I mean, it's something that, and I want to be part of it. I want to be part of the conversation, and I want to be part of the decision that this board has to make. And I want to be able to hear the public's comments on it. And, and I do agree. I think with what we have scheduled on the 26th, it could probably lead to a real awkward meeting by having to, stop that to go to the truth and taxation and then come back. So, is it 17th?
It's December 17th would be the next, there's no meeting on the 10th.
Yeah.
And so.
Mr. Chair, to move this forward, I would move that we set a public hearing to discuss the proposed updated tobacco ordinance for Tuesday, December 17th. And Jackie, I'm looking to you. Do we have things scheduled at this point? 9 o'clock? All right, for 9 a.m. on the 17th.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have motion second. Any further discussion?
And I do want to point out, I think there's mixed feelings on this, and I'm going to be very interested in hearing from some of these rural areas on their viewpoint on it, and we'll go from there.
And
Commissioner.
if I may, so to that, I think in this hearing, in which I'm glad we're having, or we may approve to have, anyway, that we're to the point, I think maybe the flavored piece will be debatable. I think the rest of the ordinance, it'd be good to have the update.
Right. I don't think there's a question on the rest of it. It's the flavor thing.
Well, one thing I've learned in 4 years here, or almost 4 years, is that the decisions of this county are not solely based on my constituency, which is all Moorhead. Not all of Moorhead, but every constituent I have lives in Moorhead. And Moorhead has addressed this in their own way. And I think a good public hearing, certainly if Commissioner Mojo can let the people that she's had this discussion with come and express their concerns, I think a good public hearing will help us air this out. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Jason, on this ordinance, is there, going back to what Commissioner Krabanoff had mentioned, there's some updates since the last time we did it, which I think, make sense. Some of those updates do make sense. The piece as it relates to flavored tobacco, is that within a limited section within this?
Yes, sir, it is. If you go.
Can you point that to me, please?
Right here. It's highlighted,
Yes, section
I'm
7.
sorry.
Page 71.
7C.
Oh, there's the backside. There we go, okay. Okay, well, that's good. Either C will be in or it won't.
Yes.
And is it important to the group that he comes, I'm just suggesting that we have a copy of the past ordinance where, I don't know, it's so much redlining, but you probably did something like that, or,
If you would like such a thing, we could provide that.
I don't need it, I'm just kind of asking the others, but,
That is why at the beginning, we, in the repealer, we have written in there to repeal what we currently have instead of having to, I didn't think the county attorney's office wanted to go through and line by line, have to make every single edit from a redlined copy, so that's why we were suggesting to repeal and replace.
got it.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
We'll get that on the agenda and see you on the 16th, if not before.
Thank you.
17.
17th. Back to committee reports. Commissioner Campbell?
All right. On Tuesday afternoon, October 15th, we had a Zoom meeting for the West Central Regional Water with Senator Pappas and some of their staff regarding bonding requests for the upcoming legislative session. I believe that went very well, that whole discussion. The previous year, we had asked for, I believe it was 9.2 million. And, because of the year later and everything, and with the price changing and things, that request has gone up to 9.75 million, I think it is, 9.7 or 9.75 million. And, she was, it was a very good conversation, a lot of interaction from a lot of people. And, she basically gave a lot of guidance on what we needed to prepare and be ready to submit for that purpose. as we were aware, and she even talked about it, that it was in the approved bonding, list of bonding projects last year, but I believe the number that was actually approved was 4 million and something. So that meeting went well. I don't know that she was optimistic that we would get the 9.7, but she certainly believes that this was a start. And she did want to learn more about the project, not only the first phase, but what's the long-term goal? Where's the water coming from? So she had a lot of questions. And then on the 17th, we had a West Central Regional Juvenile Center meeting. Those meetings are always good. James and Josh both always provide good information on both the secure and non-secure unit. James went over the population statistics and the 2024 budget. We're anticipating seeing the likely scenario that we have in the past, where our revenues are really performing well because of our ability to have non-member people coming into our county. So we're probably anticipating another year where we could see $1 million over revenues over expenditures, which then also helps obviously keep all of our bed prices down for all of our member counties. We did have he did report on the DOC licensing. That process is going well. He gave an update status on the body-worn cameras. They are in right now. They are still working on the final policy regarding what's going to be the use of that. I think Brian maybe has been working with you on that. If not, he will be for the whole policy on that, and that is really being well received by the entire group as well. We did give them an update on the action that we as a board took last week on hiring the nurses. After giving them that full report, they fully supported the decisions that were made there, and that made sense. There was one commissioner who questioned whether we would really see a savings, because in the contract it allowed for, I think it was supposed to be 120 hours a week, versus, and then we're planning for 80 hours, and James said, well, they never fulfilled with their 120 hours. So then the subject became, well, should we be asking for some money back? So that's for another day. So that meeting went very well. Then on Friday, I also attended the District 4 meeting in Fergus. I think Commissioner Moore, I don't really have a lot more to add to, other than to the topic of the PRTF. We really got a shout out from AMC staff, based on, and really congratulating Clay County for our leading efforts in this work on this facility that the entire state needs more of. And when it comes to kids with severe psychiatric problems, so they're encouraged. And as Commissioner Mojo mentioned, the number of counties that we previously had signed on to it, as long as the tribal nations. My assumption is we could probably get a lot more counties to sign on, based on what AMC is saying. So,
Commissioner Campbell?
yes.
Thank you. We did discuss that at our planning meeting, and I know all of us sit in so many different meetings with our counterparts from other counties, and we're in the process of sending those additional resolutions of support to update for this year. And I think it's on all of us to continue, as you meet with those folks, to just say, we appreciate your support last year. We're going after this again. Could you encourage your board to sign that resolution of support before the end of the year? It's going to take all of us to get as many. Sure. But I agree. I would be shocked if we have less than what we had last year. If anything, I think we'll have at least 5 or 10 more.
Yeah, and so, you know, and certainly from the legislative effort, I know from my standpoint on this thing, I've been dealing with the local building side of it, but I really appreciate the work that both Commissioner Mojo and Kravinoff have been doing on the legislative front in terms of getting the funding. I think that's obviously is the most critical component of it all right now. We can have all the good plans we want, but if we don't have the way to pay for it, then it's all for naught. So I think that concludes my report. There was quite a varying amount of different percentages of levy increases amongst our member counties. We're probably maybe in the middle of what most of them were.
Bottom 20.
Bottom 20? Well, of the state. I'm
Of
talking,
the state, yeah.
I'm talking about of our 11 county, Ames district. I think we're
Oh, the district, okay, yeah.
We're probably right in the middle. I mean, we had some that had 19%. And, you know. But anyway, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Gross?
That Tuesday, I went to the PIC meeting, and both items that we discussed there, we've already covered in our agenda today. Wednesday, we had that West Central Water District, which Councilman Campbell has already discussed, and I was impressed with Senator Pappas. She seems to be very knowledgeable on what needs to be done, and she wanted us to do our part too. It's not just a matter of we giving her a piece of paper, okay, now get us the money. I mean, she was very concerned that we do our part and getting our information together for her. That evening, I went to the Dilworth City Council members, new council members review. It was a fairly good turnout. The only thing there's no part where the people that came could participate in it. It was just a bunch of canned questions, and you asked these questions and you were done, you know, which could have been done in the paper or any other way, you know. It's just, I mean, there's no reason for anybody really to come to the meeting other than to listen to what they had to, a set of questions that they had for them. And that was my only takeaway that I thought wasn't quite right, but just glad to see all the candidates there. Thursday, a face that's been here for many years, Monica Strophison's retirement I extended that. Friday, we had the district meeting, which has been covered. And I too want to not recommend, but acknowledge, it was nice to hear Clay County's name be mentioned there for our efforts in the PRTF. So it's good to hear that. That's my meetings.
Thank you. Commissioner Kravinoff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to last Tuesday, I did have a CAP LP Finance Committee meeting. Commissioner Mojo had brought other pieces of that in her report at the actual meeting, but a lot had to do with the audit, which came back in good standing. That night I did go to the Planning Commission meeting, and as was mentioned earlier, we had two hearings, one having to do in the Rusted area for a property that was asking for an interim use permit, allowing a second home on the property. This is a property that will have the parents moving into a second home and a related family living in the house, and had good conversation about that, and there'll be some conditions that they worked with through them, but it was approved. The other one is a business that operates right on the north side of Holly. I think most of you might be familiar as you go just past the golf course and starting to go up the hill. It's to the right side, and it's a small business or a commercial business area that's been in place under under ag-related development that is changing its use or wanting to change the use. So it was coming forward for rezoning. This hearing will be coming for us for final approval at some point. But the issue was we have a commercial building that is in a needing a rezoning to highway commercial for the retail and commercial businesses that they're currently doing. One involves automobiles, and there are a large number of automobiles being stored on a small parcel. So anyway, the Planning Commission did agree. It was open to the rezoning, and then under this zoning, there would still need to be a interim commercial use permit, and so it'll have the guidance of the permitting whenever that the zoning is for now, and the business part will come later to the Planning Commission. The following day, Wednesday, following up with Commissioner Mojo, we did have our small group for the PRTF, that's strategic planning, setting things up. I can tell you that we have Steve, the county administrator, did come up with language for the potential bill for the Clay County Psychiatric Residential Treatment Facility. I was given that, and I forwarded that on to AMC, Matt Freeman, who works with our human services policy. He's our analyst, is his position. And anyway, he's going to review that. We should hear back quickly. And if that language good or advisable, it will then come back here in the form of a potential resolution. Is that correct? And then with that, we can kind of go, with that resolution, possibly with that passage, then get that on to Representative Keeler so that we can have it on the front side of everything before we start in 1st of December.
Could I just ask a question on that? So on that language, is there any specificity in regards to the ask and how it can be used? For example, our plan right now with the PRTF is, to take over the non-secure.
Yep.
So in other words, would the funding allow for, or are we emphasizing just a new construction? Because we got to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves in that language.
Right. Maybe we should have passed it out, but do you want me to read it? Or
Yeah,
I'll tell you the parts, okay?
You can even just send it to me.
Okay.
Actually-
But it's a pre-design of the juvenile center.
I was just gonna say, we can have Steve send it out too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve can send it. Yeah.
Okay. Is that satisfactory for
Sure.
now?
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
But I
just-
think, to your point, it addresses the new, unsecured. It addresses funding that may take to work with where the PRTF is going into.
Okay,
Also, the debt.
right,
that,
okay, good, okay.
Is part of that, 3.75 or whatever the number was, 375 billion. And so it includes all those pieces.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
I hadn't seen it, I just wanted
Yeah,
to question.
no, and good question. So we're following along with that as fast as we can. And I think as long as I'm on that topic, I'm gonna go to our PRTF meeting that we had yesterday. I've had some exciting days on this commission, but this was a highlight. And I just want you to know that, so through our efforts, through Representative Keeler and James and Steve, a invitation was given out to DHS, and DHS came with 3 people yesterday to the facility, and they were from the policy division. And so there are going to be two steps here. We had the policy division, and then there will be a licensing division. So James was there, did a great job, and Representative Keeler, myself, and then these three people came, and we did a 2-hour tour through the facility. And I wish James was here. We talked about it earlier. When they first came in and they felt the feeling of it, you know, you could just see them being a little cold about the thing. And as they gradually went through and we explained each piece along with solutions, they were there. Everything just lightened up and lightened up and lightened up. And finally at the end, we ended up in the gym, up in the top in the weight room, and we had a meeting. I bet it went well over 20 minutes, and just really felt like strong support, what we were doing, encouragement of other things possibly that could happen to help develop this, that with some state ideas that solutions seemed very open to. And they kind of left with big smiles, and this is what the state really wants is PRTF. They think our locale seems strong, you know, working with the tribes, working with our upper counties. So anyway, a new invitation is being sent out now to the lost my words here, the licensing, thank you, the licensing group. They'll come back, and then they will have the specifics of what will be needed for solutions to do within that building, the sizes and where placement would be, making sure that's all okay. And once we get through those two, it's my understanding that's pretty much the deep dives that we need as far as them examining the property. Then it will be us to be running after the funding to get the job done. So it was great, very, very exciting. So, and just to watch the change on the faces from beginning to end was just like night and day.
I'm sure when they first got in, they thought this is too institutionalized.
Very much. And even the point, even when we got into the last pod where we do the transitional, we were able to show them on the walls how we can take away that cinder block look and smooth the walls out. So again, this place needs to feel like home to these children while they're going through their treatment. So anyway, it was really, really good. Back to my report. Also, Quinn and I, and along with Michelle Carney of the Attorney's Office, we continue to work on the planning of finding a new coordinator for the Clay County Collaborative. We had drawn up the new job description for the coordinator. We also put out the job announcement yesterday, so that has gotten disseminated. The hope is to have that all back to us, the people that will apply for that position by November 6th, and then we'll vet it, and hopefully the goal is to have a new coordinator in place by December 4th, when we have the governance committee and have that approval. Historical Society, I had a finance committee also on that Wednesday. Everything looks in order. They are working on their draft for their 24-25 budget. Their fiscal year is at the end of October. On Thursday, then I had the West Central Initiative Economic Development meeting. The most, I guess the biggest part of that was there is a entity called the Great Minnesota Partnership, which works closely with supporting economic development in all the rural areas, and they work closely with the West Central and trying to advocate for them and also help in the way of finding more grants and support. So that was the main part. They also have a 5-year strategic plan, and we're in the 4th year of that 5-year plan. and they gave an annual update on that, local progress within it. And then on, that night was the CAP-LP meeting down in Breckenridge. Our Commissioner Mojo gave good detail on that, then I'll have to redo it. And then I too enjoyed on Friday being with you all at the AMC District 4 meeting. You've covered that very well. And that ends my report.
Thank you. On last Tuesday, on the 15th, I attended the PIC meeting, which Commissioner Gross has already reported on the two issues that we dealt with today. On the 17th, Thursday, I virtually attended the Clay County Suicide and Substance Abuse meeting. Lil Panero of Youth Substance Misuse Coordinator for MDH is now working for the Health Equity Network and gave a presentation on health equity in the state. It went very long. Sarah Dixon Hackey also was following up on that, but I was unable to listen to her portion of it. Again, it was a very good report by Ms. Panero. It went long. There was a lot of discussion, and I had to get off the computer and get to my next meeting, which was West Central Regional Juvenile Center, and Commissioner Campbell's already addressed that, but a lot of good response to the things we're doing in this county for juveniles. And as always, our board there is very impressed with what's going on. And I think we're providing a good service to them. And as Commissioner Campbell indicated, we're going to come over. There'll be some revenues left over that can keep down the cost of the beds and keep the facility up and running. And the AMC District 4 fall meeting has already been reported. We did come up, it was gratifying to see that both Human Services and Public Safety put an emphasis on mental health, and that's one of the issues that we're going to take to the legislature this term. And the AMC is fully engaged on that with this as a priority. Yesterday, I attended the Dancing Skies Regional Council on Aging meeting in Crookston. And basically, we looked at our budget and approved it, the funding approval. There is a cutback, both federal and state, in a lot of areas. There is a new retail delivery tax that's out there that senior programs get a part of. We get $12,000 from the partial year collection on that to go towards some of the food programs that Dancing Skies engaged in. And we had a lengthy review of bylaws and committee restructure that I will not get into the weeds with you on that, but it was an hour and a half. Really did, the commissioners on this committee are very passionate. In some of the rural areas, they're providing the only services a lot of their seniors get. And we had good discussion on that. And that completes my report. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in the PIC meeting. That's been well covered. Also met with our regional city administrators and county administrators we discussed budgets, cannabis, and then their most recent ICMA conference. On the 15th, participated in the West Central Regional District Water District that's been addressed with Senator Pappas. Senator Johnson was also online, did reach out to both of them, thanking them for their willingness to participate, and did hear from Senator Johnson and indicated that this is one of his top projects for this next legislative session. So 16th, participated in the PRTF legislative session planning, and as was mentioned, worked with Commissioner Mojo, Commissioner Kravinoff, and Quinn in regards to legislation. We also updated the resolution to highlight the change of plan moving forward from the non-secure detention PRTF standpoint. That will be going out to all of our groups Also reached out to a number of other counties that were not on the list last year of resolutions, and so, as Commissioner Mojo mentioned, we may have some additional counties on board. Participated also then in the United Way Chili lunch. Again, our committee is looking at great and innovative ways to try to raise additional funds. They raised an additional $160 from that, and we were all happily fed, so that was the important part. I met with Justin and Darren on an issue in Highway that afternoon, and then also met with Matt Jacobson in the process of developing a letter for the cities, rural cities and townships in regards to registration for cannabis. And again, a reminder that we can't help them with the planning portion because our standards are different. So that hopefully will be going out soon. We, on the 17th, worked with Brian. We're updating. We have our four contracts for our legal contracts for CHIPS. Conservatorships and paternity are up at the end of the year. And so we'll be bringing those contracts forward here in the coming weeks. Participated in MCCA JPA pre-meeting. We have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday. On the 17th, I met with Sheriff Empting on a series of issues, and then also participated or headed over to Bonnie Christofferson's open house from the VSO office, retirement open house. On the 18th, participated in the district meeting. Again, handed out some of the resolutions there just to kind of get it on their radar with the Word document going out this week. And then I did, after that, go over to the DMV, and probably more in the way than helped necessarily set up over there. But it sounds like we had a successful day. We didn't get to ease in with just a couple people on that first Monday. It was a full house right away, and so they did well there. Just a couple reminders over the next week. We have a couple different meetings set that we'll have a Clay County City of Moorhead cyber security tabletop exercise tomorrow. You're certainly welcome to participate in that at the MCOM Center. Next Monday, there's going to be a Clay County Leadership Roundtable put on by the Chamber at MSUM. And then just the second open house for the MetroCrog Heartland Trail Study is going to be this Tuesday, or Wednesday, excuse me, from 5 to 7 in Glendon. And there'll actually be a project presentation at 5:30 for any citizens that are interested. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Brian? Harold?
Just a couple reminders that open enrollment starts tomorrow for everybody. It is online, and it'll go through November 6th, so about 2 weeks. You can also sign up to visit with a counselor if you want, and a lot of those emails have already gone all county. So make sure that you get that done before November 6th. And also today, the NIS is giving a presentation on Medicare. That will be at 10 o'clock this morning over at the Government Training Center, and then at 1:30 today in the Family Service Center in meeting room number 8. So you don't have to sign up for that, but if you want to go ahead and listen, and if you're getting close to retirement and want to know a little bit more about Medicare, then please go to those sessions. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie? Nothing for us? Any additional business? If not, we're adjourned.